The section that has attracted the most number of opinions, most heated public debate, 2 online petitions and 1 public petition to the Parliament, is in fact one that has been retained. Section 377A, which probably has become the most known piece of legislation in recent Singapore history. Let us look at this issue in a hypothetical scenario. Singapore was never a British colony, and we did not inherit Section 377A. Today's debate then becomes one of justifying the introduction of a new piece of legislation which states that it is an offence for any male person who in public or private commits an act of gross indecency with another male person. The rationale will be that since Singapore is a generally conservative society, we should single out and criminalize all sexual activities between 2 men while accepting that the same activity of anal and oral sex between a heterosexual couple and sexual activity between 2 women need not be offences. By doing so, we will be aligning our law with most countries in Africa and Middle East. In this hypothetical scenario, perhaps some countries like India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan and Malaysia will also introduce similar acts as what the current position is. Other former British colonies which have since repealed the 19th century law, such as Australia, New Zealand and Hong Kong, will most likely not think it is necessary to now criminalize man-to-man sex. While almost all Western countries do not have similar laws, we will argue that it is not relevant for us to take reference from them. However, we are also choosing not to benchmark Singapore against countries like China, Indonesia, Thailand, Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines, which do not have laws that criminalize male homosexual activity. According to various points raised by the public, by not criminalizing gay sex, it will lead to an increase in homosexual activity, both in public and private. There will also be more male pedophiles eyeing young boys, blatant public solicitation, and more AIDS patients. Well, the fact that in 2006, of all the new AIDS cases in Singapore, homosexual transmission constitutes only 26% does not seem to register clearly with the public. We also know that there are already and will be stronger laws against prostitution, sexual abuse, exploitation of minors, and public indecency. Maybe that is why we will propose that Section 377A need not and will not be proactively enforced. Can the Minister of State give examples of situations where specific enforcement of only Section 377A may be needed? Yesterday, he has mentioned previous convictions under Section 377A, but it seems to me that they could also have been prosecuted under other sections. With no proactive enforcement, should anyone be a good citizen and report private gay sexual activities to the police, or would they be simply ignored? Would there be ramifications of this legislation? If someone rents his apartment to a gay couple, will he be charged as an abetting accomplice to a crime under Section 5 of the Penal Code? Besides valid immigration and foreign employment papers, should landlords now ask for confirmation of their tenants' sexual orientation? With a punishment of up to 2 years of imprisonment, we are deeming that such activities are of similar severity as causing death by negligent act as in Section 304AB, wrongfully confining any person for 3 or more days in Section 345, and assault or use of criminal force to a person with intent to outrage modesty in Section 3541. Our justification will also be supported by various surveys, including an NTU study published in September 2007, which saw that 68.6% of respondents in Singapore are negative towards sex between 2 men or 2 women. However, it is also interesting to note that some countries choose not to reflect such social non-acceptance in legislation. Based on the Pew Global Attitudes Project in 2003, 93% in Indonesia and 84% in Vietnam say that homosexuality should not be accepted by society. But these countries have no equivalent of Section 377A. I assume most Singaporeans do not have many gay acquaintances. We are likely to gather our knowledge and form our opinions of the homosexual world from media reports. I believe certain stereotypes of homosexuals in people's minds will include effeminate men, or the likes of Boy George maybe, men who prey on young boys, example Christopher Neil, flamboyant men who seem to lead decadent lifestyles like maybe Elton John, and AIDS patients like Mr. Paddy Chu. I do know quite a number of homosexual men and women. The majority, well, if not all of them, do not fall into any of those above-mentioned stereotype categories. Well, they include some very talented and creative people. Well, a common descriptor of gays, which many have said that it is totally unfounded. Well, these are the directors, actors, hairstylists, designers. But I also know many gay men who many will say are just your average man on the street, making a living as lawyers, lecturers, engineers, accountants, bankers, teachers, and civil servants. I know they have different sexual practices from me, and I have treated them just as any other person. Now I'm reminded that perhaps I should see them as criminals who should spend time behind bars. Perhaps the thousands of audience who pay as much as $400 to watch Sir Ian McKellen, better known as Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, playing King Lear in July, might think twice now, as he's an openly gay man and hence should object to allowing a criminal on the stage of our esplanade. There are negative and positive steps a country can do to discourage and encourage certain behaviors. For example, we do not want to condone smoking and drinking. These acts are not criminal under the law, although we have made tobacco and alcohol less accessible and a lot more expensive. We want to promote marriage and procreation. Hence, singles do not enjoy certain tax and housing benefits, but they are not jailed. We may be utterly surprised, disappointed, embarrassed, disgusted, and angry with our friends, our colleagues, our relatives, if we find out that they are gay. Well, I will be saddened if my son is gay, because I realize I will not have any grandchildren by him. I may choose to disown him. And now we are saying that he should be jailed.